The day was bright and full of excitement. It was one of those special days when the public could come close to the royal palace to see the Queen and her guards. The royal family often held events like this, where people could celebrate and enjoy the beauty of tradition and history. The palace grounds were full of visitors, families, tourists, and fans of the monarchy. There were flags waving, music playing softly, and everyone seemed happy. But among the crowd, not all were there with good intentions. A group of bikers had arrived that day. They were loud, rough, and looked out of place among the polite visitors. These bikers belonged to a gang known for their troublemaking and racist ideas. Their leather jackets had patches showing symbols and words that many found offensive. They rode their heavy motorcycles with engines roaring, attracting attention as they pulled up near the royal grounds. Some people whispered about their reputation, warning others to keep away. Among the royal guards, standing tall and proud, was a black officer named James. He was strong, disciplined, and respected by his fellow guards. James had trained hard to serve in this special role, protecting the Queen and maintaining order during public events. His uniform was crisp, his posture perfect, and his eyes always alert. He knew that being a royal guard meant representing not just the royal family but also values like respect, dignity, and fairness. James carried himself with quiet confidence, proud to wear the badge despite knowing that some people might judge him because of the color of his skin. As the bikers approached the main entrance where James was posted, they started making rude comments. Some muttered slurs under their breath, while others laughed loudly. James heard them but stayed calm, not wanting to lose control in front of the crowd. The bikers, however, were not satisfied with just words. One of the younger men, feeling bold and disrespectful, stepped closer to James. The air grew tense. The young biker looked James up and down and then, without warning, slapped him across the face. The slap was hard enough to cause shock but not to injure. The crowd gasped immediately. People stopped what they were doing and stared in disbelief. The sound of the slap echoed in the quiet moment, and for a few seconds, no one moved. The slap was an attack not only on James, but also on everything he stood for. A shocking act of disrespect against the royal guard and the royal family. James's face showed surprise, but he quickly regained his composure. He did not hit back. Instead, he took a step back and held his ground. His training told him to stay professional no matter what happened. He looked the young biker in the eye, his expression calm but firm. The other bikers laughed and cheered, thinking they had shown power. But the crowd was uneasy. People whispered to each other, some showing anger, others shock. Children looked confused, not understanding why anyone would behave like that in such a place. What nobody knew at that moment was that the Queen herself was watching. Hidden behind a small group of her close aides, she had been observing the event quietly. The Queen was known for her ability to notice everything, even the smallest details. When she saw the slap, her face changed. A flash of anger and disappointment crossed her eyes. She had always believed in fairness and respect for all her subjects, no matter their background. The Queen's presence was a secret to the crowd. Many people thought she was somewhere else, inside the palace or attending another ceremony. But she was right there, witnessing the insult and the bikers' bad behavior. She did not say anything out loud, but her mind was already working on how to respond. She knew this moment could not be ignored. The royal family was a symbol of unity and respect, and such hatred could not be allowed near them. Meanwhile, James stayed calm. Knowing that the Queen was watching gave him a small comfort. It was hard to stand there after being slapped, but he reminded himself that he was doing an important job. The other guards quickly moved closer to him, ready to protect and support. The bikers, sensing that the mood had changed, began to look less confident. Some of them glanced nervously around, realizing that they might be in more trouble than they thought. The crowd began to murmur louder, and some people started taking out their phones to record the incident. The slap was becoming more than just a moment. It was turning into a story that could spread quickly. The bikers did not expect this. They thought they could act without consequences because they believed they were powerful. But the presence of the Queen and the shock of the crowd meant that things were about to change. James took a deep breath and continued standing tall. He did not want to give the bikers the satisfaction of seeing him upset. His calmness inspired others around him, reminding them that strength was not just physical, but also about dignity and patience. People in the crowd started to quietly applaud his courage. Some moved closer to support him, while others looked at the bikers with disapproval. The bikers tried to act tough, but inside they were uneasy. They had crossed a line they did not fully understand. The slap was not just an insult to a guard, it was an insult to the royal family and the whole country. The Queen's presence meant that this would not be forgotten easily. As the bikers prepared to leave, their leader shouted some more hateful words, but they were drowned out by the growing noise of the crowd. At that moment, the security team, following the Queen's orders, moved in. They calmly but firmly told the bikers to leave the area. There was no violence, but the message was clear. Their behavior was unacceptable. The bikers were escorted away from the palace grounds, their pride damaged more than their bodies. They realized that their racist attitudes had made them the center of a serious problem. James stood back with his fellow guards, still proud and calm. He knew this was only the beginning of a bigger story. The Queen's quiet but firm watch had sent a powerful signal. Racism and disrespect would not be tolerated in the kingdom. The crowd slowly returned to their celebrations, but many people whispered about what had happened. They admired James's bravery and felt hope that justice might come from this. That day, something important had happened beyond just a slap. It was a moment when courage met cruelty, and respect faced hate. It was a test of strength, not with fists, but with dignity and fairness. And while the bikers thought they were showing power, the true power belonged to James and the Queen, who stood for equality and honor. The incident would be remembered as a turning point, a story of how one guard's calm in the face of hate was seen by the highest person in the land. This was just the beginning of a story that would shake the nation. But for now, the royal grounds returned to their peaceful, proud atmosphere, with the Queen watching quietly, ready to act when needed. After the shocking moment when the Black Royal Guard James was slapped by a member of the racist biker gang, the atmosphere around the royal grounds grew tense. People whispered among themselves, some angry, some confused. But most importantly, the Queen, who had been quietly watching the whole incident from a short distance, immediately began to take action. The Queen was known not only for her dignity, but also for her strong sense of justice. She had spent decades leading her country with fairness and kindness, always trying to bring people together regardless of their backgrounds. Seeing a guard, who was just doing his duty, treated with such disrespect, made her heart heavy. She understood that this was not just an isolated event. It reflected a larger problem in society. Without hesitation, the Queen gave a signal to her closest security officers. They moved quickly and quietly toward the group of bikers. The officers were trained to handle delicate situations calmly but firmly. The Queen wanted to make sure that the bikers would be removed from the area peacefully without causing a bigger scene. At the same time, she wanted to protect James and the other guards who were standing strong despite the insult. The security team formed a barrier between the bikers and the rest of the crowd. They spoke to the bikers firmly but politely, explaining that their behavior was unacceptable and that they must leave immediately. The bikers, still caught up in their anger and pride, shouted back at the officers, but the security personnel remained calm. Their professionalism showed the crowd that the royal family would not tolerate disrespect or racism, no matter who it came from. As the bikers were escorted away, the Queen herself moved closer to James. Her face showed concern and respect. She thanked him quietly for his professionalism and courage. For James, this moment was deeply meaningful. To be recognized by the Queen for standing strong during such a difficult time gave him a sense of pride and hope. It reminded him that he was not alone and that the values he believed in were shared at the highest levels. After the bikers were removed, the Queen spoke with her advisors about what had happened. She wanted to make sure that proper steps were taken, not just for that day, but for the future. She understood that an incident like this could have many effects on public opinion and the reputation of the royal family. It was important to show that the monarchy stood against hate and discrimination in all its forms. At the same time, the Queen was aware that this incident could inspire people across the country. Seeing a black royal guard being supported so clearly by the highest authority sent a strong message. It said that everyone deserved respect and fair treatment, regardless of their race or background. The Queen wanted this message to reach as many people as possible. The news of the slap and the Queen's response began to spread quickly. Reporters and journalists who had been covering the event started asking questions and looking for statements. The Royal Press Office prepared an official announcement. In it, the Queen expressed her disappointment about the incident and made it clear that racism was not welcome anywhere in the kingdom. She praised James for his strength and dedication, calling him a role model for everyone. The announcement was powerful. It showed that the royal family was united against racism and stood behind those who served them faithfully. People across the nation read the statement and felt a renewed sense of hope. Many took to social media to express their support for James and the Queen's stand. The incident, which could have been just another sad story, turned into a moment of unity and strength. Meanwhile, the police began their own investigation into the biker gang. They looked into the group's history and discovered that many members had records of racist behavior and other criminal activities. This information made the public even more determined to see justice served. The police promised to take strong action to prevent such behavior from happening near royal properties again. Back at the palace, James continued his duties with even more determination. He knew that many people were watching now, not just the Queen but the whole country. He wanted to prove that he was worthy of their trust and respect. His fellow guards supported him, proud to stand alongside a man who had faced hate and responded with courage and dignity. The Queen also took steps to improve training and awareness among her staff. She believed that education was key to fighting racism. New programs were introduced to teach respect and equality, not just to the royal guards, but also to all employees and contractors working on royal properties. The goal was to create an environment where everyone felt safe and valued. As the days passed, the story of the slap and the Queen's reaction became a symbol of hope. People talked about how a simple act of courage by one guard, combined with the wisdom and fairness of a leader, could make a difference. Schools discussed the event in lessons about equality, and community groups organized events to celebrate diversity. The Queen's calm but firm reaction showed the nation that leadership means standing up for what is right, even in difficult moments. Her actions inspired many, reminding them that hate can be challenged with respect and strength. James's experience became a powerful reminder that dignity and courage could shine through darkness. Though the bikers had tried to cause trouble, they had unintentionally sparked a movement toward greater awareness and change. The Queen's presence during the incident had turned a moment of hate into a moment of hope. The people of the kingdom saw that justice was not just a word, but a promise that their leaders were ready to keep. The days after the incident were busy for everyone involved. Meetings were held, plans were made, and the royal family prepared to face the public once again. But through it all, the Queen's message remained clear. Racism had no place in the kingdom, and those who served the nation deserved honor and respect. James continued his work with pride. He felt a deep connection to the royal family and the people he protected. His story was no longer just about a slap, it was about standing tall in the face of hate and showing the true meaning of strength. The Queen's watchful eyes and wise leadership had made sure that justice would be done. This part of the story shows how powerful leadership and courage can be when they work together. It reminds us that even in moments of pain and injustice, there is always a chance to bring people closer and build a better future. The Queen's reaction was not just about one incident. It was about sending a message to the whole world that respect and equality must always come first. After the shocking incident where a racist biker slapped James, the Black Royal Guard, and the Queen's immediate intervention, the story quickly spread far beyond the palace grounds. The moment was captured on many phones and cameras by witnesses. In minutes, videos began to appear on social media. News outlets, both local and international, started reporting on the event. What had begun as a private attack became a public issue discussed by millions. The media frenzy that followed was intense. Journalists from various news channels raced to get the full story. They wanted to interview witnesses, experts, and officials to understand the situation better. The incident was more than just a slap. It was a symbol of the ongoing struggle against racism, a topic that many people were passionate about. The story touched a nerve because it happened in one of the most respected places in the country, right under the eyes of the Queen. Reporters interviewed James, who spoke calmly and thoughtfully about what happened. He shared how surprised he was by the slap, but emphasized that he chose not to retaliate because he wanted to maintain dignity and professionalism. His words inspired many people, showing that strength comes from self-control and courage. James explained that his role was to protect the Queen and the public, and he was proud to serve despite the challenges he faced. The public response was overwhelmingly supportive of James. People took to social media platforms, sharing messages of encouragement and praise. Hashtags supporting the Royal Guard and condemning racism started trending worldwide. Many people saw James as a hero, someone who stood tall when faced with hate. Community leaders and activists used the incident to highlight the need for change in society. At the same time, police officials began a thorough investigation into the biker gang involved. They discovered that the group was not only known for racist behavior but also had connections to other illegal activities. This information shocked the public and increased calls for justice. The police promised to take strong action, including arrests and legal charges against those responsible for the attack. The investigation involved gathering evidence, reviewing videos, and interviewing witnesses. Police officers worked tirelessly to build a case that could hold up in court. Their efforts sent a message that no one was above the law, no matter their attitude or background. The royal family publicly supported the police, showing a united front against hate crimes. Meanwhile, the royal family's communications team prepared official statements to address the nation. The Queen's message was clear and powerful. She condemned racism in all forms and praised James for his bravery. The statement reassured people that the monarchy stood firmly against discrimination and was committed to promoting equality. It also expressed gratitude to the security team for their professionalism during the incident. The Queen's message resonated deeply with the public. It was not just words but a promise to work toward a more inclusive society. Many people who had once felt ignored or marginalized found hope in her leadership. The royal family's support encouraged others to speak out against racism and to stand together in solidarity. Educational institutions also took note of the incident. Schools and universities began discussing the event in their classes, using it as a case study about respect, equality, and the importance of standing up against injustice. Teachers encouraged students to share their thoughts and feelings, helping young people understand the impact of racism and the value of courage. Community groups organized events and forums to talk about diversity and inclusion. These gatherings allowed people from different backgrounds to share their stories and work together to create positive change. The incident involving James became a catalyst for meaningful conversations and actions throughout the country. The biker gang, however, faced severe consequences. Public opinion turned sharply against them. Their reputation was damaged beyond repair, and many members faced social rejection. Businesses and sponsors that once supported or tolerated them withdrew their support. The gang found it increasingly difficult to operate openly without facing backlash. Some members of the gang expressed regret privately, realizing the harm they had caused. Others remained defiant, but even they understood that things had changed. The slap that they thought would show their power instead revealed their weakness and isolation. The nation's eyes were watching, and justice was on the way. For James, life changed in many ways after the incident. He became a symbol of resilience and professionalism. Invitations came for him to speak at events, participate in awareness campaigns, and share his story with young people. Despite the sudden attention, James remained humble and focused on his duty. He wanted to use his experience to inspire others and to promote respect and equality. His fellow guards felt pride in standing beside him. The incident brought the team closer, strengthening their commitment to protecting the royal family and the public. Training programs were updated to include lessons from the event, emphasizing how to handle difficult situations with dignity and courage. The Queen's presence during the slap had also become a historic moment. It reminded people that leaders must pay attention to even the smallest injustices and respond with fairness. The monarchy's role as a symbol of unity and justice was reinforced by the way they handled the situation. As the story continued to unfold, it inspired similar actions in other parts of the world. People saw that standing against racism was not just a local issue, but a global responsibility. The incident at the royal grounds sparked conversations about how institutions could work to create more inclusive environments. Throughout it all, the royal family remained focused on healing and progress. They met with community leaders, experts, and activists to learn how they could improve their policies and practices. New initiatives were introduced to support diversity in all areas of public life. The impact of the incident reached far beyond the initial slap. It became a turning point in the fight against racism, showing how courage, leadership, and unity can overcome hate. James's calm response and the Queen's firm action set an example for people everywhere. In the weeks and months that followed, the investigation continued, and justice was served. The bikers who attacked James faced legal consequences, sending a clear message that such behavior would not be tolerated. Society took a step forward, inspired by the strength and dignity shown by those who stood against hate. This part of the story shows how an act of cruelty can become a powerful force for change. It teaches that when people come together to support what is right, they can create a better, fairer world. The Queen's leadership and James's bravery remind us all that respect and equality are worth fighting for. After the shock of the slap and the powerful response from the Queen and the royal family, the story entered a new and important phase. The nation was watching closely, and many people were waiting to see what would happen next. This part of the story shows how courage and leadership can inspire real change, and how one event can ripple through society in ways nobody expected. The royal family decided it was not enough to simply condemn the attack and support James publicly. They wanted to take real, practical steps to ensure that such hate and disrespect would never happen again, especially in places of honor like the royal palace. The Queen personally ordered a full review of security procedures, training programs, and public relations. She wanted every guard and staff member to understand not just how to protect the royal family, but also how to represent the values of respect and equality. One of the first things that happened was the introduction of new training sessions for the royal guards. These sessions were designed to teach not only physical skills, but also emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. The guards learned how to handle difficult and potentially dangerous situations calmly and professionally, just like James did during the slap incident. They practiced ways to de-escalate conflicts without violence, showing strength through patience and dignity. James was asked to lead some of these training sessions, sharing his personal experience and the lessons he had learned. His story became a powerful tool for teaching others about courage and professionalism. He spoke openly about the pain of being insulted and the strength it took to stay calm. Hearing his words motivated many guards and staff members. They realized that their role was about more than security. It was about being ambassadors of respect and fairness. At the same time, the royal family increased their outreach to communities across the kingdom. The Queen made a point to visit different towns and cities, speaking directly to people from all walks of life. She talked about the importance of unity and inclusion, and she listened carefully to people's concerns and hopes. These visits helped bridge gaps and build trust between the monarchy and the diverse communities they served. Local leaders and organizations welcomed the Queen's efforts. They saw her actions as a sign that the royal family was serious about addressing racism and promoting equality. Together, they began working on projects to educate people about the value of diversity and the harm caused by prejudice. Schools, community centers, and workplaces all started hosting discussions and events inspired by the slap incident and the Queen's response. The media continued to cover these positive developments, highlighting stories of change and hope. Journalists wrote about how a difficult and painful moment had sparked a nationwide conversation about respect and fairness. They interviewed people who had been inspired to stand up against racism in their own lives. The story of James and the Queen became a symbol of progress. Meanwhile, the biker gang members who had caused the incident faced increasing pressure from the community and the law. Some were arrested and charged with assault and hate crimes. The legal process was closely followed by the public, who hoped to see justice served. Courts reminded everyone that hate and violence had consequences, and that society would protect those who were targeted unfairly. Some members of the gang showed remorse, understanding that their actions had harmed not only James, but also their own reputations and futures. Others refused to change, but they became isolated, losing support from their peers and sponsors. The community's rejection of their behavior sent a clear message that hate would not be accepted. James's life was also changing in many ways. While he continued his duties with the Royal Guard, he became more involved in public speaking and community work. He accepted invitations to talk at schools, charities, and government events, sharing his story to encourage understanding and respect. His humility and sincerity made him a beloved figure in many circles. He also started working with organizations dedicated to fighting racism and promoting equality. These groups valued his experience and voice. Together, they created programs to educate young people about the importance of diversity and the dangers of prejudice. James's involvement helped bring real change to communities that had struggled with discrimination for years. The Queen and the royal family supported these efforts fully. They provided funding and visibility, helping the programs reach more people. Their involvement gave the initiatives credibility and momentum. The royal family's commitment showed that they believed in leading by example and using their influence for good. This part of the story also showed the personal side of James. Despite the public attention, he remained grounded and focused on what mattered most: serving his country with honor. He spoke honestly about the challenges he faced, including moments of fear and sadness. But he also shared his hope and belief that change was possible. His family stood by him through everything. They were proud of his courage and the impact he was making. Their support helped James stay strong during difficult times. They celebrated the small victories and reminded him that his efforts were making a difference. As time went on, the royal palace became a safer and more welcoming place for everyone. Visitors noticed the increased friendliness and respect among the staff. The new training and community outreach created a more positive atmosphere. People felt proud to be part of a country where the highest leaders took a stand against hate and discrimination. The story of the slap and the Queen's response became part of the kingdom's history. It was remembered not just for the incident itself, but for the way it sparked change. The event was included in books, documentaries, and lessons about courage, leadership, and the fight for equality. This part of the story teaches an important lesson. True leadership means taking action, not just words. The Queen's decision to address the problem head-on inspired a nation to look within and work toward a better future. James's example showed that individual courage, combined with support from leaders, can overcome even the darkest moments. The changes that followed the slap incident were just the beginning. The royal family and the people of the kingdom continued to work together to build a society where everyone was treated with dignity and respect. Their journey was not always easy, but their commitment never wavered. This story reminds us all that no matter how small or big an act of hate may seem, it can become a turning point for positive change. When people stand together, guided by courage and fairness, they can create a world where respect and equality truly shine. After the strong response by the Queen and the royal family to the slap incident and the important changes that followed, the story reached its final and most powerful chapter. This part is about how the event left a lasting impact, how people's hearts and minds began to change, and how the country moved toward hope and healing. It shows how a single moment of injustice can become a beginning for something greater, something that brings people together rather than tearing them apart. The slap had been a moment of anger and hatred, but the way it was handled made it a moment of learning and growth. James, the royal guard who had been insulted, became more than just a guard. He became a symbol. People everywhere saw him as a living example of courage, dignity, and respect. His calm reaction in the face of hate inspired countless others to think differently about their own actions and attitudes. As James continued his work at the palace, he also became involved in many public activities. He spoke to young people in schools, urging them to reject hate and embrace kindness and fairness. His speeches were simple but powerful. He shared his experience not to gain sympathy, but to teach a lesson. Everyone deserves respect, and standing up for what is right is the true mark of strength. Many young people who heard James's story began to think deeply about their own beliefs and behaviors. Some admitted that they had held prejudices they didn't realize before. Others found courage to speak out against racism in their own communities. James's message spread far and wide, reaching even places where such conversations were difficult to have. The Queen also continued her work, meeting with leaders and citizens from all backgrounds. She traveled across the kingdom to listen to people's stories and understand their struggles. Her genuine interest and care helped build bridges between different communities. People saw that their voices mattered, and that the monarchy was willing to help create a fairer society. The royal family's ongoing commitment brought hope to many who had felt forgotten or ignored. Their presence at community events and their support for anti-racism programs showed that change was not just a promise, but a real effort. This helped heal wounds and create trust between the government and the people. At the same time, the biker gang's story took a different path. Those who had caused the incident faced justice in court. The legal process was fair and transparent, allowing the victims and the public to see that the law worked for everyone. Some members of the gang were sentenced to prison, while others were required to attend rehabilitation and education programs designed to change their views on race and respect. These consequences sent a strong message to society. Hateful actions have serious repercussions. The community's rejection of the gang's behavior made it clear that racism was not tolerated. People who had once felt powerless began to feel empowered, knowing that their society stood with them. Many members of the biker gang struggled with their punishments. Some truly changed their ways, realizing that hate only leads to pain and isolation. Others resisted but found themselves increasingly cut off from support. Over time, the gang lost its influence and ability to spread hate. Meanwhile, James's family and friends were proud of the role he had played in this national story. They supported him through every step and celebrated the positive changes he helped inspire. Their love and encouragement gave James the strength to keep going. Even when the attention and responsibilities grew, the royal palace itself became a symbol of change. Visitors who came from around the world noticed the kindness and respect shown by the guards and staff. The training and new programs had created a welcoming environment where diversity was celebrated, not feared. The palace was no longer just a place of tradition. It became a place of progress. The media continued to tell this story as a hopeful example of how leadership and courage can change a nation. Documentaries, books, and articles shared the journey of James, the Queen, and the people who came together to fight racism. These stories inspired other countries to take similar steps. Schools added this story to their lessons about history, leadership, and equality. Students learned about the importance of standing up for justice and treating others with kindness. Teachers used James's experience to show that every person, no matter their role or background, can make a difference. Community groups expanded their efforts to promote unity and understanding. They organized festivals, workshops, and cultural events that brought people together to celebrate diversity. These gatherings helped break down barriers and build friendships across different races and backgrounds. The Queen's leadership continued to be a guiding light. She reminded the nation often that progress requires patience, courage, and the willingness to listen. Her example showed that even those with great power must serve the people with humility and fairness. In time, the slap incident became a turning point in the kingdom's history. It was remembered not as a moment of hate, but as a moment when courage and leadership sparked a movement toward justice. The story showed how even painful events could lead to hope and healing when people came together. James's personal journey was a testament to the power of dignity and resilience. From being a target of hate, he rose to become a voice of hope and a leader in the fight for equality. His calm and brave response inspired others to believe in a better future. The royal family's continued support helped ensure that the changes made after the incident were not temporary. New policies, education programs, and community outreach became permanent parts of the kingdom's efforts to build a fair society. This commitment gave people confidence that progress would continue. The community's response also showed the power of unity. People from all walks of life joined hands to reject hate and build respect. Their efforts created a stronger, more connected society where differences were celebrated and everyone's dignity was honored. Through it all, the kingdom learned a valuable lesson. When leaders show courage and fairness, and when people stand together with respect and kindness, even the darkest moments can become sources of light. The slap incident, once a painful event, became a symbol of hope, change, and the promise of a better tomorrow. The story ends with a message for everyone. Respect is not just about words, but about actions. Each person has the power to stand against hate and to promote fairness in their own way. The courage shown by James and the wisdom of the Queen remind us that justice and kindness will always shine brightest when people come together.